We now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say Hotep Varagani to my African Studies colleagues and contemporaries and researchers after the truth. And let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and never ever goodbye, because I always find goodbyes traumatizing. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we are worshiping with our sister church at 8916 South Main. Sister church is the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, pastored by my good friend, Reverend Della F. Hollis. I haven't said this in a long time, but they always say when the Baptists and the Charismatics get together, there's always going to be a shouting in the camp. And truly God has been blessing this fellowship and this extended communion. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one building, and one service. So welcome to come. You're welcome to come and worship with us at any and all time. It's lively, and the Spirit is in the midst of us. This is a social justice offering that you are viewing right now, and it's titled "It's Time," tells us what we should be about, our Father's business, and it is what we call our social justice offering. Because we deal with the environment and we deal with the economics. And I may as well tell you before I get started, that I believe in reparations, and I believe that reparations must cover not only slavery, but the subsequent resegregation and Jim Crow that lasted until the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and even after then, of course, they didn't get what they call the Fair Housing Act until the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, who had campaigned and who was strategizing and who was doing his best to lift God's people. But it was only guilt that made them pass the Fair Housing Act. And so I feel that slavery and segregation are two sides of the same coin, and those who have been commissioned or served on the committee here in California, have done a yeoman's job of uncovering and discovering and academically presenting in a 700-page report the facts that back up why we should have reparations. But first, let me go to the text, the scriptures, Deuteronomy chapter 15, picking up the reading at verse number 12 through the end of verse number 14. And this is what it said: "And if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go free from thee. And when thou sendest him or her out free from thee, thou shalt not let either of them go away empty. Thou shalt furnish them liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress. Of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them," which give is, of course, antithetical to capitalism, because in capitalism there's winners and losers. Somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose, whereas under God's economy, he says it's more blessed to give than to receive. But in any case, in order to fulfill God's way of looking after those who were less fortunate, or who had fallen on hard times, or who were homeless, or who were in poverty, thou wast to give them liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them. The word of God for the people of God, which allows us to go into our study of this reparations phenomenon, or this reparations subject. And I have been reading and studying, and let me tell you what I've discovered. First of all, we're going to end on Randall Robinson, late Randall Robinson, who died before previously. And in case you get this, look at this on YouTube later on, or out of sequence, this week, this Tuesday past, it's Friday now when we're doing this broadcast, the civil rights activist and the actor and the singer, Harry Belafonte, passed away, and we mourned his passing. We have had a great loss, and if you study the civil rights activities, you'll see his name there listed prominently. He helped to raise a lot of money for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and for the civil rights movement period. And we owe him a great debt. Not only did he get Dr. King out of prison a lot of time, but he also was able to raise funds to get the other people whose names we don't know, the common people, out of prison or out of jails also, because, you know, the sheriffs and the police and the city officials were eager to arrest all of the civil rights demonstrators that they could round up, and they did round them up, and they put them in jail, they put them in their prison, and they were holding them there and until they could get bailed out. And a lot of times poor people don't have that kind of money. I know I wouldn't have that kind of money, but through Harry Belafonte being able to get his friends in the entertainment and the political field together, then they would put on these big concerts or big programs, and that would raise a great deal of money. Plus, Harry Belafonte contributed generously out of his own money for the sake of the civil rights movement. And so we mourn his loss, and the half on his of his accomplishments and of his endeavors and of his efforts to make this world a better place has yet not been fully explicated. And so we need to do a deep dive on the life of such a great and noble figure as Harry Belafonte. All right, he was 96 years old. Now, we live in an economic system. As I said at the beginning, on this broadcast, we deal with the environment and the economy, because this is a capitalistic system, and it goes without saying that this system is a system of money and credit. And we find, as we began to research this subject, especially as it relates to reparations, that most of the money and the credit in this country is in fewer and fewer hands. You need credit when you need to buy a big ticket item, such as an automobile. That all of us don't have $100,000 to go put down on a car, so you got to finance that $100,000, and that means somebody got to extend you credit. Well, if the credit is like this here, it might shut you out, because there's only a few companies that will extend that kind of credit. And that's what happens on the capitalistic system. you have more and more power concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. Way back in when Woodrow Wilson was elected, they were worried about the concentration, as they call it, of money and credit among a few people. J.P. Morgan, Mr. George Baker, and Mr. James Stillman, names that I don't even know, but they were very powerful way back then. And so they had concentrated their money, and what Woodrow Wilson and the Congress found out was that not only was J.P. Morgan having his own company, but he had his people on the boards of all of these other companies. So that means he may not directly own the other company, but if he's in the controllership of those companies, it didn't matter, because nothing was going to happen that Mr. J.P. Morgan did not want. And that is what led to the Sherman Act, which was to break up monopolies, and a lot of other acts. Matter of fact, the Glass-Steagall Act, which was overturned by President Clinton and opened up the debacle that we have seen since then, was an attempt to keep the field level. But even then, it was failing. It says here that the concentration of money and credit is strong enough to influence and dominate the New York Stock Exchange. You hear me? And not only the New York Stock Exchange, but the Clearinghouse Association described as anomalies. But as I said, J. Pierpont Morgan, James E. Stillman, and George F. Baker, they can make or break a bull market. In other words, they can create a bull market or a bear market by the way in which they choose to deal with other people's money. And that's the danger. That's always been the danger. You go on the stock market, you want to buy some stock, because you're a poor man, but you think you put some money in the stock market, you might, catch a break. But you don't control the stock market, because these entities can create a bull or a bear market with other people's money. They ain't got to put that money at risk. They can put other people's money at risk, and you are left to, as it were, fly out there in the wind, swinging in the breeze, as it were. I won't bore you with a lot of extraneous things, but I do want you to realize that way back in 1913, they realized that this dangerous concentration of money and credits in the hands of a few men of great power in the financial world, which in fact amounted to a trust or monopoly. You see me looking down because we don't have a teleprompter to look up where I can look up here at you and read, but like the people on television, but you get the point. And so the black man in this country has never got an even break, because he was never at the table. He was always on the table, as in the 1884 meeting in Berlin, when the European powers divided up what King Leopold described as this great cake. That's where they looked at the continent of Africa as a great piece of cake, and we're going to divide it up. Among the we was, who was it? Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, and whatever lesser country, the Dutch and all those people, they were in charge. Matter of fact, Belgium, King Leopold took over the Belgian Congo as his what? Fiefdom, as his private fiefdom, and he ruled it ruthlessly. cutting off people's hands if they didn't come in with enough gold. You make them put your hand out here and cut that hand off. And as a warning to their families or to the other members of their tribes that they had better come up with the amount of gold or whatever commodity that King Leopold said that he needed at that time. And that was where a lot of the atrocities were performed against the people. And we won't go into the chocolate manufacture or the rubber manufacture, other than to say that those little images in chocolate, those images were originally a representation, a symbolic representation of those hands of those people that had been hewed off. And they didn't just hew off men's hands, they hewed off boys and girls' hands. And so all of this was when the greed of the world, or greed of a few men, was allowed to proliferate or to go unchecked. And it is still going unchecked even at this hour. You talk about the development of the railroads, the development of the cell phones, and the development of the chip in our time, not the railroads, because railroads back there then, but the cell phone and the semiconductor chip, that was in your and my time. But even then, even now, we don't set the price of this phone that I'm looking at, right? I don't set the price of this phone. I pay what the people tell me I got to pay if I want the phone and if I want the service, just like you. And they got these out here by the millions, and they come out with a new update or a new phone every couple of years, and they make it hard for me to use the phone that I've had for 2 years, because why? They got so many new features, and they just might even just stop making a fix for my phone, and I'm up the creek, as they say, without a paddle. I got to go get another phone, but I don't control that, you see. And this is another evidence or example of a monopoly. But lest I keep you too long, as the preacher would say, let me go to Randall Robinson, who died before Harry Belafonte, but he's still to be mourned, because he too was a great soul and a great activist, and he suffered for his people. He mourned and yearned for his people, and he did his best to alleviate the suffering. He was one of the early people who tried to get the country to notice the South African apartheid and stop cooperating with that evil regime. And even his own people, us black folks, was against him for his championing of that South African cause. But he said, look, not only am I American, I'm also a South African, you know. And he was out there when it was not popular to be against South African apartheid. And he paid a great price, but he stayed true to his ethics, stayed true to his principles. Also, he was the organizer of Trans-Africa, which is still going on today. Trans means not just the continent of Africa, but it embraces us who are the diaspora. Remember, we were cut off from Africa. They cut us off from our memory. They cut us off from our identity. They cut us off from our very names, our language, our religion. They made us a blank slate. And Randall Robinson was fond of saying that the axe forgets, but not the tree. Old African proverb. And he says that one could look at the various criteria by which a person or organization discriminates, whether it's religion, sexual orientation, or race. But he says, in my case, it was race. And he says, I was wounded. And one doesn't want that to happen to anyone else. It certainly has a more lasting effect to the wounded than to the one who inflicts the wound. And I think we could say amen to that. Continuing on, he says, my early life was inspired by early experience. Let me read that again. My human life was inspired by early experience. This was American apartheid. And a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that America was an apartheid state. In many ways, it is still an apartheid state. When you listen to some of these talking heads on TV, especially on cable news and on the cable shows, I won't call his name, but one of those very popular shows, the guy was talking against reparation, because he said, my family didn't have any slave, but as Randall Robinson says, where do you stand on the benefits of slavery? You see, it's not that you just didn't have slaves, but you are reaping the benefits of that slavery, whether you say you are or not, or whether you want to acknowledge that fact or not. It's trying to find that statement, but I won't waste my time or your time trying to find that. But the point is that the beneficiaries of slavery fail to acknowledge that they are benefiting. America wouldn't be the country that it is today without the slavery, the free labor that was beaten or exploited out of the Africans who were come here, who were brought here against their will. I should stop trying to do this because I can't get to the statement in time. So I'll cease and desist on that. But the question is well raised. Where do you stand, or how have you benefited as a result of slavery? And the answer is where the white, those that have been deemed white, have benefited very well, where those of us that are designated as black, which are both social constructs, political constructs, in other words, we who are deemed to be black have not benefited. We have suffered, and a lot of us continue to suffer because the wealth gap, as they call it, has grown exponentially. Some people are making $75,000 an hour, whereas the average person now in Los Angeles is just getting where they get $25 an hour, average wage. So you can't earn $25 an hour and compare yourself to the person who earns $75,000 an hour. That's a big wealth gap, and that's a great hill to climb. Anyway, I'm going to make a few more observations that Randall Robinson made. And remember, this is not original with me. I'm just, it resonates with my spirit because, I love this country. And I have seen how we have have trampled the poor, and how we have exploited the labor. 5 minutes? All right. And how we have exploited the labor of the working man, which is why we had to have unions to try to get somebody to go in the room with the management and at least get the poor man enough money to buy gas to go home. You don't hear me. All right. Robinson says our history was hidden from us. Our memory has been eradicated. The research and the academic work is so obscure in America, so you hidden our own history from us. A people, you have hidden a people's history from them, and that is hard to get your mind around. But naturally now we have Africana studies. Some of you were around when they first started talking about black studies, black student unions, or getting black studies in these universities and colleges. And they fought black studies in black history, just like they're fighting critical race theory. So this is not a new fight. It's been going on a long time, and it's going to continue to go on, but we must always continue to push and to insist on uncovering the truth. When you hear DeSantis saying, well, we don't want our kids to be shamed, what they don't want them to be shamed about is when, like in his state of Florida, they had Rosewood, which is black town, but the white folks went in Rosewood and destroyed it. They had another town called Ocoee, where the Negroes were trying to have their own community, their own neighborhood. The white folks went in there and destroyed it, burned the town down. It wasn't a riot, it was a massacre. That is what they don't want you to uncover or discover. But it has to be, the truth has to be told. As Randall Robinson says, I am what I am because they were what they were. But when you don't know that there was a they, or when you are not aware that there was a time, then it is though you have been dismembered from your own history, from your own self. Okay? We have little to emulate. And I'm wrapping this up because it's 4:28. But what that means in essence is that a lot of our people would be more than what they are had they known the depths of the truth of their own history. As Randall Robinson says, that cataract surgery was being performed in Timbuktu way back in the 1400s, you know. And in 1400 we were talking about Columbus, but not about Timbuktu, not about the cataract surgery, what the advancement that had been made by our own people. And so that is the gist of our subject of our visit today, and that's why we need reparation, because we need to be made whole. And it's an astronomical figure. That's because they didn't pay it when it was due. If they had paid it back during slavery, then we wouldn't have that problem. If they had been fair back during the wars, then we wouldn't have that problem. But they weren't fair during the slavery. They certainly wasn't fair during Jim Crow, and it wasn't fair in World War I or World War II. And it wasn't until Truman that they finally desegregated the armed services, so that by the time the Korea and Vietnam came along, even though I still didn't see me in those pictures, but at least they were making some strides to rectify the historic wrongs. Again, my time is up. But as I always say, if you're working on a job and they don't want to pay you, you know what you need to do? Take a page out of the slave diaries, and if they don't want to pay you, don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. Love you. God bless you and keep you. Is my prayer.
I won't complain.